You know those times when you need to break the ice, warm people up, but you don't want to do something cheesy, you'd like it to be energizing, you'd like whatever you do to make people smile, laugh, etc. That's what I'm going to share in this video, because bad icebreakers give me hives, and so in this video I plan on giving you a good one and 3 variations to make sure that you can perfectly adapt it and fit it to your context. The cool thing is the exercise that I'm going to share with you, which is called story swap, is universally applicable in terms of ages, in terms of context, in terms of purpose of gathering, in terms of size of gathering, because your participants, whoever's in the room, get to choose the level of depth and the content that is actually shared and comes out. In order for icebreakers to be good and not produce hives, they've got to be non-threatening, really inviting, and involve a lot of choice for people. And this exercise does that in a really simple and concrete way. I'm Chad Littlefield. Somehow I actually get to do this for a living with some of the smartest and most talented leaders and educators on the planet. And I can't wait to share one of my secrets with you. So fundamentally, there's a way to lead this with a prop and without a prop. So in order to get people swapping stories, you could just have people pair up and say, tell a story, and then they hear a story, and then they swap partners and go off and connect. I'm gonna go with lame on that one. What I like to use is a tool, and you can use any tool. I happen to have created a deck called We Engage cards that have images on one side and quotes on the other. You could cut out a bunch of pictures from a National Geographic magazine. You could use whatever images you want. But what you want to do is cut out images in kind of a card format so that you can invite people to grab a card so that they actually can't see the image, but their partner can. So grab a card so they can't see the image. And the directions very simply are, pair up with somebody you know least in the room, hold up your card to them, and if you are shown a card, so let's pretend you're doing this right now. If you're shown a card, let's get this closer. If you're shown a card, your job is to tell a story that is cued by that image. The cool thing is, this puts the idea that a picture says 1,000 words to life. It works. Even like uncreative, logically minded, rational, systems thinking engineers, when they're shown a picture, reminds them of a story. They're like, for me, I did not plan to tell the story, but I met my wife living on an Anishinaabe Indian reservation in northern Minnesota. We were living there just for a month to learn from the elders and medicine men and participate in, weren't there to do or change anything other than just learn and listen. In the place that we were staying had a laundry room. We were there for a month. We had to do laundry. And one of my most fond moments of meeting Kate was sitting in this laundry room. There was like a weird little laundry rack thing that we put over our legs, and we were having a chat. This is so nerdy. We were having a chat and kind of pretending that we were in a roller coaster seat next to each other, just having a conversation about the adventure that we had been on. I've probably over-romanticized that. It was probably much more boring and we were tired just doing laundry. But that's a story that came to my mind here. You can see how that one picture, what it does is when a brain sees a picture, it pulls a file, or more realistically, multiple files out of your lifetime of ungoogleable experience. And so really simply, the mechanics are pair up with somebody, show them the image, listen to their story cued by that image. Then they're gonna show you their image on their card, and you're gonna tell a story about that. And at the end of that, and somebody's gonna ask in your group, it's like, what do we do next? At the end of that, you are going to swap cards and toss your hand in the air, signaling that you're looking for somebody new to pair up with. So similar to my exercise question swap, if you've seen that, this is a story swap with these cards. And you can see this exchange in the back, and when people are looking at images, they want to point it out and talk about it. And it's creating all these smiles and little moments and connections as that's happening. Which is why I felt comfortable calling this video an absolutely amazing icebreaker, because it's really brain-based. I don't know why the brains love stories so much, but here's what I can tell you anecdotally. When I'm standing in front of a group of 100 or 3,000 people giving a keynote, and I'm sharing ideas that might like change the world, I might be saying something really profound, like, you know, a choice of words is often a choice of worlds. They're like, whatever. But when I tell a story about Kate sitting in a laundry room with me and us having this conversation, I literally see 100 to 3,000 people physically lean in with their bodies. Right? There's something that storytelling does to ignite our brains, send our neurons flying. They're really, really memorable, right? I gave a TEDx talk 10 years ago on the idea of positive social risks. Some really cool concepts in there. You know what people remember when they see it and they're like, oh man, what about that girl in the green jacket? And you can Google that if you want to find out the story of the girl in the green jacket. But stories are sticky. So the cool part about this exercise is that you're getting all of these really memorable connections to happen. So when long after you've forgotten somebody's name, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, you're the person that held up that picture of a window and told us the time that you went up to the 87th floor of a building in Melbourne, Australia, and looked out the window and saw a view you'd never seen before, and it was really cool, right? Like that's gonna stick in my brain because visual and story-based and experiential data tends to get encoded into our long-term memory, whereas just language and numbers tend to go in and go out. So by pairing images with stories, there's something really magical that happens there. As promised, 3 variations real quick. So originally I had people grab one card, hold it up to the person. You could also, especially if you have a smaller group, have a bunch of cards laying image side up and say, choose an image that represents a story you want to share with somebody. So you've got a bunch of choices, tons of choice infused into that. The second way, if you don't have these cards, which by the way, there's a link in the description to download a digital version of these cards for free and then print out. You don't have to pay for them, it's free, that's cool. But if you don't even want to do that, everybody walks around with a computer in their pocket now, and it probably has thousands of photos that will never see the light of day unless you invite people to choose an image on their phone that represents a story they want to talk about. Like Otto, my neighbor always used to say that the best toy is the box it comes in. And so my 2.5-year-old, crawling out of box the other day. Now, as I'm filming, this is just literally the first picture that popped up on my phone because perhaps the most recent one that I took. The point is, we're literally carrying around at minimum, dozens of hours of stories in our pockets that we very rarely share with each other. And so as a leader in a group, as somebody leading an icebreaker, by inviting people to share a story rooted in an image, create all this meaningful depth that people are happy to share because there's a reason they took a picture of it. Like there's a reason you go to the Grand Canyon and you're like, I can't just soak in this moment, I have to take a picture right now. I think it's because at some unconscious level, we want to share it with someone, even though chances are we're not actually going to share it. It's just going to sit in the archive of a little SD card on our phone. And the last variation I think is really, really cool. I had somebody named Garrison Cohen share with me that if you want to tell a story and bypass someone's prefrontal cortex, the part that can be confused and doubt and reason, if you want to share, in other words, a story that someone cannot disagree with, share a story about a time before you were 10 years old. So simply by offering the prompt of choose an image, or when you see an image, can you share a story about a time around or before you were 10 years old. The reason you can't disagree with that is when I tell you that my mom was a medical illustrator and she used to draw all these really crazy surgeries and stuff like that. So when my brother and sister and I played doctor, we really played doctor. My mom would draw this crazy open wound on us, and she always used to tell me and remind me that I was way more interested and cared about the patient experience rather than like the clinical side of stopping the bleeding, right? My brother would be like, you know, pretend bleeding out, and I'd be like, oh, like, do you need to adjust your pillow? Like, how are you feeling? You want some Jello? Right? I'd be like totally off base there. When I tell you that story, can't really disagree with it. You just like smile and nod, like you're just soaking that in, and probably you're leaning in and really soaking in that story. And so I'm just inviting people to tell a story from when they were younger brings out some level of connection. In particular, you want to go really advanced, invite them to tell a story about who they were when they were 10 years old that's still true today. I thought I was going to be a doctor when I went to college, then I took a chemistry class. Not so much, right? So the part of who I was as a kid playing doctor still rings true today. I'd still like to think that my job on the planet, helping leaders and educators make connection and engagement really easy, is a form of actually healing people. I just don't happen to be the clinician. You probably need something to do at the end of this video, and so if you know you're like totally bored, you could probably cruise down into the description and find the link to buy these We Engage cards if you wanted to, or download them for free. It's all groovy with me. Have an awesome day.